This
If
conference
you're
will now be recorded.
okay, uh, if you're good with my screen, please let me know.
Yeah.
So, uh, basically, Python is a general purpose programming language. We call it as an interpreted interactive object oriented programming language. So, you will have a thought what is and why Python is an interpreted and why we call it as interactive. Because every programming language is written in a high level language. When I say high level language, it's in English or Hindi or Sanskrit or any human language. So our basic idea is to convey our logic to machines systems. So we need a platform to exchange this high level code to machine codes. So basically we have interpreter and compiler doing this job. And all in case of all programming language, they have been there is a section called compiling where you write your codes in high level language. Compiler compiles the code, it converts into machine language and then execute it. Whereas in Python, the code is directly converted line by line on a go during the execution. So Python is referred to as an interpreted language. And second term is interactive. Why Python is an interactive language? We have OS like Linux, Windows, where we have a shell for user to interact with the kernel. When I say shell, it is an interactive terminal for user and the kernel. When I say kernel, it is the package software for the OS. Similar we have for those OS, we have a terminal for Python interpreter, which is not there for any other programming languages in this area. So in through this terminal, user can interact with Python terminal, issue commands. The terminal waits for the commands and replace. So there is an terminal interaction there. So Python is called as an interactive programming. As all other programming languages, it is an object-oriented programming where in Python everything is an object. And I'll come deeply into that point if uh, when we goes to object-oriented module. So there are a lot of programming languages out in the world. We have C, Java, C++, and why people are focusing more on Python. It is nothing but let me start with the history and how Python was developed. Python was developed by a computer scientist Guido van Rossum, and he was working in a amoeba distributed system where he need a programming system or an interactive system which can interact with amoeba. So he thought of extending ABC. ABC was the existing programming language at that time. So people used to say, what is common in alphabets and Python? They both start with ABC. In case of Python, it is the programming language ABC. So Python follows uh, the basic syntax ideology, interpreter activities, all the flow as in case of ABC. So that is the history of Python, and 1994 first Python version was introduced. And the Python, comparing to other language, it has a clean syntax in the sense it's highly readable. It is where the blocks or codes are separated by indents, not by any curly braces or semicolons. So the logic written by a program is universal and readable to everyone. So the learning time for Python is less. And we have uh, told at the beginning that Python is an interpreted language. So all the source codes of Python or, or the source code with Python developers write are converted into byte codes by something called Python virtual machine, as we have in JVM in Java, where this PVM converts this code into .pyc file, that is a Python compiled file on the fly when it is executed and a program gets executed. When a Python file is triggered in a system where Python is installed, it searches for a Python compiled file. If it is available, it fetches the details. If it is not available, on the go, it will compile and run and give us the result. And Python have an option of extending its functionality in Java, and we call it as Jython. That is basically integration with Java. We can also run C++ codes in Python, adding the C and C++ extensions. So these are the basic details and history of Python. Every Python will have a .py extension. This statistics is like 2 years back, but Python is really doing well in coming years. So these are the companies using Python. This is installation and setup part of the Python, which we'll be dealing in the next training part. The code alignment in Python is basically the blocks are separated by intonations. When I say block, it is the area of the code or portion of the code with certain logics. In other programming languages like C, Java, we separate blocks by braces and we get an error if we miss any brace. But in case of Python, we do it by intonation. When I say intonation, it is the number of space difference from your left hand margin of the ID which where you are using. Before we go to variables and other details, I'll just quick start Python. I'm using Anaconda distributed system for triggering Python interpreter, which you will come to, and I'll be dealing the course completely in Anaconda, where we have a Python notebook, which is specifically used for data analytics activities in Python, which I'll be explaining throughout the course. If we just press Python, it gives us the version. Rightly, we are in 2.7 version of the Python, and it kickstart the interpreter. As I said, it is interactive. If we just ask interpreter to do some calculations, it gives us the result. If we say some variable name to the interpreter, it remembers the name. So this is how Python is interactive. As every programming language structural build, this also has a data interaction. So basically what we do using a program is to change or manipulate data or implement a logic to handle the data in which the way which we want. So we requires memory spaces for storing and taking our data, and we call these memory locations, which we indicate in our logic or program, called as identifiers. And these are given certain identifiers are the name given to those memory locations which we exchange data, and we simply call them as variable. So a variable in a programming language is a memory location where we exchange our data, where we take, store, or exchange our data. We go to variables. As I told, it's just a memory locations where we store our data, and we name it as, and the name which we give to variable for calling it, we call it as identifier. So there are some keywords which every programming language use a part of its syntax. So even Python has, you can see the list of keywords, and as, break, class, continue, and all these keywords cannot be used as an identifier for naming a variable. So that is the naming convention for variable as it exists for every programming language. So this is the nomenclature for uh, naming a variable, and we'll just see how. I'm expecting a GIF to be played here. I don't know, like it is not getting played. Yeah, I just want to convey that when we change the variable value, what Python reads is the memory locations, not considering the value. And if we change the value also, the memory locations get updated. And as I mentioned, in all programming language, we alter or we trigger or we use data. So an interpreter to rightly identify each data, we have segregated them into certain types and we call them as data types. In Python, we have 5 different data types. They are rightly listed in the screen: numbers, strings, lists, tuples, and dictionary. Where numbers deals with integer and non-integer numerical values, strings are characters, list are kind of an array in Java where it is a list of either numbers, strings, tuples. Tuples is a immutable data types in Python. When I say immutable, it is once it is created, we will not be able to edit or modify it. Tuple is just a pair of it's just uh, comparing to list. It's another list, but it is syntaxed with parentheses, where list is syntaxed with square brackets. And dictionaries like hash tables in Java, it is having a key value pair, and it is a kind of key data type which we use for our various programming activities. So I'll stop here with the Python demo. So these are the areas we basically cover in Python. We'll just go for basics along, and we have a dedicated module for data analytics. We call it as scikit-learn and scipy, and where it has numpy, pandas, and all those modules. And we'll be covering after completing this basic session, we will be covering that one. So I'll hold Python training here and I'll start a data analytics training example for you. If you could give me any response, like I'll be able to.
Yes, Arun.
Yeah. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. This is the page for uh, Anaconda distributed system, which I have mentioned. We will be using as an IDE throughout the course.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so this is an IPython notebook.
Okay.
Okay, so here I'll just show you how we do data analytics in Python, or how we what are the practical side of Python using in data analytics.
Yeah.
So basically, data analytics or data analysis is a process of interacting with the data. We just have a set of data related to various domain, and we are uh, looking through the data with the help of statistics and identifying the patterns and behavior of data for making predictions or conclusions or insights from data.
Mm.
So every data analysis process starts with an exploratory data analysis. As the word says, it is just exploring the data, understanding the insights. In the second cell, you can see the various data exploration, various stages in data analysis process. Data analysis and visualization process, where first step is, as we rightly said, data exploration, and which I'll be showing you in the demo.
Okay.
In data exploration, we visualize, uh, we find various behavior of the data. How well is data set? Is all values available? How is data distributed? So basically, we have Excel as a basic data analytic tool in our Windows operating system, where we load our CSV or
Mm-hmm.
any file. We see a lot of exploratory statistics using Excel. Uh, Excel, when we are unable to handle huge amount of data, 2 GB, 3 GB of data sets. We will not be able to uh, handle with Excel. So we need another resource, another tool for operating such data. Python is one such tool where we can read a huge size data set and explore it and apply statistic models on it. So basically, every data analysis work on base of statistic, on top of statistics. There are a lot of statistic insights algorithms which we apply on data and make conclusions. So Python has inbuilt libraries which enables us to use this statistic idea. So before we start using algorithms, first thing we have to understand is what type of algorithm we have to use. Before to understand that, we must understand what the data say to us and what is the behavior of data, whether that is a time series, whether data is an incremental data, whether the data is normal distributed, everything. So I'll just,
So how can we know that whether it is a time series or and all?
yeah, I'm coming to that process only.
Okay.
So in the first cell, you can see the various modules are imported. When we say import pandas as PD, it traces panda is a built-in package in Python which has all libraries which supports handling the data in tabular format.
Mm-hmm.
Tabular format, we can uh, do all type of data manipulation. We can make changes. We can plot the. We can see the changes, and we can get the calculations, get the percentages, distribution, everything in pandas. Seaborn is a library which enables at the plot. Matplotlib is also another library which enables us to plot and see for the visual side of data. The first line explains like import pandas as PD. We are importing this whole library pandas as the name of PD. In the program, we will be further using it as the name PD. Same applies for Seaborn and Matplotlib plot.
Mm-hmm.
So when I say matplotlib inline, it gives, if we do not use this command, when we say Python to plot a graph, it open up a new window and plot the graph. But when we say inline, it plots in the same notebook so that it will be easy as for analysis. This is just a styling for rendering it in an HTML format. Basically, all these notebooks, what they do is that they take up the codes and they render in the HTML and they provide the output. So we all these data sets. When I say data set, it can be any data. For example, it can be sales of a shop, or it can be attendance sheet of a college, or it can be past result of an college. It can be employee retention in an organization. So it can be any data which says about something about the domain. So here I am importing a data set. It shows the sales of a particular supermarket. So how we have a CS, we have this set of data in a CSV file, and we call this set of data as a data set. So how we import, how we read this data set using Python? So we use pandas. There is a function called read CSV. If it is an Excel, we have it as read Excel. So for since it's in CSV, use read underscore CSV. We give the complete extension, complete details of the path where the file resides. In
Mm.
my system, in desktop, this particular folder, this is the
Okay.
file which it resides.
So we
So
just need to copy that. Yeah.
yeah, if you
Okay.
just click enter, it just, sorry,
Mm.
what just missed is that in Anaconda we have to run all the cells from starting. So then only the variables takes the values. So we just missed that. So PD was not able to my interpreter was not able to recognize my PD name. Now it is able to recognize. We'll just print and see. It just give a print command. It is just seeing what is there in our data set. You can see a red dark color here. It says that the kernel is busy and it's running. And you can also see the running. Once it is finished, it will be in this color. So now the program running has finished, and now it is showing us the data. So this is the head of the data. When I say head, it is the first 10 entries of the data set. So
Mm.
right, you will be confused. Like, what is this? It's like totally a mess. So we have another command. This is just showing us what all are the columns and rows. First 10 rows. We can see the columns like identify, item identifier, item weight, item context, item visibility, item type. These are all the columns which is available in the dataset.
Yeah.
So it is just since it is having a space difficulty to show all the columns at a stretch, it is splitting and showing.
Okay.
So if we just give a command like data.info, it lists all the columns of our dataset. So when we say column, the right word to use in a data analytics perspective is features. Features is are the considerable data points for a particular domain. So here I was telling you it is like a, supermarket data. So what all features we have to consider for sales of a supermarket data? It is when I say item, it is the product which is sold in the supermarket. So it is the index for the data set is the item identifier. It may be a barcode number, or it can be any code number which gives identity to the product. The product weight, fat content. When I say visibility, it is the visibility of the product in the store, where it is placed. It isn't placed in the front row or back end or side row.
Mm.
Type means what type of product. It can be a fruit, or it can be a grocery, or it can be uh, any other type. MRP is the listed price, and these are the different outlets. We are basically comparing sales of different outlets of same supermarket in different locations. So we just want to see, identify the location, identify which outlet is this, establishment year, size. So this is the details of the uh, data
Supermarket.
set.
Okay.
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 So uh, first we see is that how many numbers. So here we have 8500 and rows. So you can see something like non-null objects. So when we say object, it is basically character value. It is like numeric, it is non-numerical value. Float is a new float and int are the numerical values. Don't get confused or hesitated on the names object float. Once we cover the Python basic part, you will be more aware about all these things. But I would just want to give you an insight how things work when we pull data using Python.
Okay.
So when we run, what are the different types of? So basically, we identify what are the different types. So each feature or each column carries certain value, but we must proactively know what type of object it holds. So it says that object. Again, people get confused when pandas shows object here, and we use object oriented program object. It's as in this context, it is extremely different things. It's entirely different things. It is actually object here refers to the character data set,
Okay.
character data type, and float is the integer. A float and integer
Floating.
are the numerical data. Yeah. So this just tells us what type of data exists there.
Okay.
So that is how we drill down to a data set. We go see what type of data, and now you will be thinking why we want to see those data, why we want to see those data types uh, for all columns, and what we are going to do with that. I'll give you details by opening up my machine learning slide. Before that, I just want to show you this skewness and all is something related to statistic. You get confused if I say something right now, but I'll just show you the distribution. You rightly asked how you identify it as a, I do you identify the distribution of the data. So this is how the data is distributed, and there is are you aware about normal distribution?
No.
Okay, not a problem. So normal distribution is a conceptual distribution or ideal distribution we assume that all data has. And basically all process of data preparation, after data exploration, it is data cleaning and preparation for building models. So
Mm.
in all preparation to apply our algorithms, what we do is we basically convert all data into an normalized into normal distribution. I'll just show you a normal distribution curve. Distribution. So that you'll identify what is normal distribution. Yeah. You can see some curves here, right? Normal distribution.
Okay.
So this is the expected distribution of data. So for our data, it is a skewed normal distribution, and you
Is
will
it the
come to know what is this.
left right side? Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah. Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah. So our idea of cleaning or preparing data set is to normalize or bring data set to this distribution as possible we can,
Okay.
and we apply machine learning algorithms to get it predicted.
Okay.
And you were asking me what is a time series data set, or so there are different types of data sets we uh, deal for analysis, and there is another classification for that one. Before that, I'll just kickstart a machine learning PPT. So, uh, so far we have seen basics of Python, and with that ability of understanding data using Python, we have seen a data set. We have did some exploratory activity on data set. We have seen how data is distributed and how an Excel sheet represents data. Same way we tried to represent data using Panda. And there are a lot of manipulation activities which will come in Panda specific training. So What is the benefit? What is the benefit? What is the end result of doing an analysis? It is just understanding the data and providing the business conclusions. When I say business suggestions, when I say business suggestions, if for example we were dealing with the shopkeepers data, for example, as you are a data scientist, a shop person is coming to you and giving his sales data and telling, yeah, I have a sales data here, tell me some insights from the data so that I can make changes in my product distribution or whatever so that I can improve my revenue. So we go through the data, we make some statistical insights. For example, we'll again go to that. I'll show you some statistical stuff so that you can just have an insight how we give. See, here what we did is we have plotted all our features against our sales. So you can see what affects our sales. For example, we go for item visibility. Yeah, see, it is showing here is the high value for. Let me check. Okay, as the visibility of item decreases or the distance here the visibility is like given in distance. If the distance from the customer increases, the sales get decreases. So it what does it basically tells is that if you keep a product back end of the stores, a customer cannot come and see it, and the probability of buying that product get reduced and sales get reduced. So I was just giving a small insight on that, how we make insight. So we'll just plot the visibility against sales and we just rightly tell them what is happening. Hope you understand that. So coming to so to make we use data analytics to make data analysis to make such business suggestions. But coming to machine learning part, we are using that insight and making a system or making a machine to learn from the data and behave accordingly. So we people learn from our experience. Every every programming language or every programming system follows instructions and they are rule based learning. But for a machine learning model, it learns from the data. So machine learning is an artificial intelligence technology where the system learns over time from the data. It is not directly programmed to learn. It learns from the data. The it learn when I say it learns from the data, it learns from the trends. So with this combination, this conclusion has happened. So in future, if this combination is coming, this might happen. So that is the learning expectancy. So we say we have a data, we analyze it, we give business suggestions. And why we do a machine learning, or what are the advantages of machine learning? So uh, you might you may not understand all these terms like what is data modeling, classification, value prediction, and all. So I'll drill down. It's like this. You visit all e-commerce website, right? Amazon or
Mm.
Flipkart. Yeah. So, how have you ever thought how customized as are Amazon products when you log in? When you log in, from your system, you see a certain display things for you.
Yeah.
And when your friend logins, he sees different systems,
Mm.
different products displayed. Have you ever thought why it is done or how it is done? It is just tracking your browsing history. So your browsing history is the data for the e-commerce website. It rightly identify the products and it classify the products which you are interested in, and it gives you suggestions. So your temptations of buying the product increases.
Yeah.
So they get a sales from out of that. So that is the application of machine learning and data analysis. They are analyzing your browsing data. They are rightly identifying the suggestions which they can propose to you and getting the business, increasing the value of business. So these are just definitions given on machine learning, which we will go into detail during the training. So how basically a machine learning algorithm or machine learning model works. For example, if you are training a model and if you show the model a cat's image, it should rightly say it's a cat. So how the process done that you download or you find then millions of or images of different cats and you give it to algorithm. Algorithm is a statistical or it's a statistical understanding which is being logically coded using Python, and it will be a built-in package where we supply our data. It learns from the data and the model get trained, and when we give another set of data, it predicts. So that is how it works. And the training we call it as experience, and the prediction, uh, the prediction level where you see T is the training phase. So experience and training gives us the potential capability of mission, how well it predicts. So rightly I told like how we will identify like what are the sales, and this is for admission test. Like we will identify, we will categorize the students. Uh, if we have admission test for every colleges or every courses, something like that. So we just classify the student score into different areas and we just see whether it is admitted or not admitted. And if a man sitting for this, uh, for lakhs of student result, it will take a huge time. But when we supply this to an algorithm, it rightly clusters the scores and give you right suggestions which student has to be admitted and not admitted. These are the various applications of machine learning. So what is a machine learning purpose? It is identifying or using a raw data, and we are supplying to a trained model and getting our output. So this is basically the system works where in the training phase we supply data to algorithm, we train the model. You can see the learning algorithm, the model, and real-time prediction. See, these are the various phases. This is the training data. This algorithm learning the model. So this is how machine learning process work. So how can we improve a present system with a machine learning capability? We just add a training model there, and we can see the results. So these will come into more each will uh, dig down to each detail by detail. What is the training data? What is an algorithm? What is the training? What is testing? What is real time? All this scenario. What is a model? How it is learning? How an algorithm is made, and all those things will come in detail.
Okay.
But I just want you to understand this is how the system works.
Mhm.
Okay, we use scikit-learn library for Python. So you will have a doubt. We have all this data set as numerical value or maybe character value, and how we will take this to algorithm. Where scikit-learn is a library which handles only numerical values. So what we do is that we convert these into matrices. Matrices are, you know about metrics, right?
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is just a collection of numbers, and we represents this. For example, this is our if this is our sales data, this represents the item visibility. This represents the item MRP. This represents like these are various features. We just convert into a numerical data, and it will be like every machine learning process we will have an output related to the for example in sales data we have all those features by for using which we are predicting the sales of the data. So all those features which we are using to predict, we call it as dependent variable, independent variable, and the sales data which you're predicting out of this dependent variable, we call it as the independent variable. It is just the relation between independent and dependent variable enables us to predict things. So uh, to do this using Python, to bring this data into programs, we convert the data into metrics. So you will think how we will convert. So all those things will come in our uh, training set, mm, our training sessions. So this is just doing, and there are basically three different types of algorithms: unsupervised, supervised, and super reinforcement. And in this, uh, when I say supervised algorithm, where the data set is labeled and uh, you know the relationship between independent and dependent variable. Unsupervised is where we don't have a label for the data. From the data set, we have to make conclusions, and reinforcement learning is something that supervised learning, we supply data back to algorithm, so algorithm learns by itself, and when it encounters a system, a similar situation again, it uses it. Don't get confused with these things.
Yeah, I
I'll
think Arun, this is enough for today's session. We can learn deeply in the coming classes. Yeah.
Yeah, I just basically want to I don't want to give you all these things
Mhm.
at a single stretch. I would just want to give a
Mhm.
walkthrough how
Okay.
how the training like progress. So
Yeah.
all this machine learning part will come at the last portion, and initially we'll be sticking on with the Python.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Arun.
Okay.
Thank you.